To the left, we have the LG C10. To the right, we have the Sony A8G. Now, we're going to revisit this, basically, and we're doing so because now I'm using the BT 2020 color space. I'm also using HDR effect mode. I feel like this is the only mode LG has that can get it into Sony territory and help it surpass Sony. And I think in a lot of areas, you'll notice the LG C10 surpassing the Sony with this HDR effect mode. Now, a lot of purists say turn off all processing modes, disable all your processing, but you're going to see in scene after scene, this LG is not only holding its own with Sony A8Gs, really like top of the line processing as far as image quality with color, but it's also doing an extraordinary job as far as just overall skin tones is what really impressed me the most after using this mode. Now again, it's very important to note the first time I did my kind of review of this television, I didn't use the BT 2020 because I wasn't aware of this cheat code of 11131111. And even at the time of shooting this video, many have said that they just flat out can't access this. They tried it and nothing happened. So if you were one of those people, sorry, I really can't say much to that. Maybe reach out to LG. But what I can say is trying this with my settings with this result is just incredible. It looks right. Like, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, is this even the same LG? It's tracking a lot closer to Sony. To be fair, I did sit here and use the Sony as a reference monitor in HDR effect mode to get it closer to what a Sony would look like. So I do have a bit of an unfair advantage there. But honestly, the fact that LG is capable of it, like this scene here, all LG all day, every day. That looked incredible, right? And LG has moments, and it's so weird because it's like when you go from scene to scene, some moments look great. Like now, as I look at it with my naked eye, the LG, like when you get to fire scenes, that's where LG suffers a bit because it doesn't have good reds. I find anytime you're going to have a red scene, LG is going to kind of suffer a bit. It's not going to look as nice as it should, we should say, just simply because the reds can get a little sour. Clarity is another massive thing LG is ridiculously lacking, like this scene. It's almost like you have all the depth and three-dimensionality on the Sony. However, on the other scene, you know, you saw a lot more in the way of skin tonality. And like even now, color is going to be the thing that, again, once you really just use the kind of settings that I'm using, you're going to pull off so much more for your LG than what was possible before even figuring this out and using Sony to kind of create colors that benefit LG a lot better than before. Now, after doing that, I can safely say the LG C10, while not my favorite TV, and it definitely still has its problems, motion, after testing it with the Spider-Man scene, one of my little clips here, I can safely say it's still a little jerky, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was. And in scene for scene, tit for tat, I think they do incredibly well against one another, but, I mean, I think it's going to come down to a preference thing, right? This is like, for everybody that buys professional cameras or higher end cameras, you kind of are going to know where I'm going to go with this, but it's like when you have different choices between lens quality. What I mean is some lenses are just going to be sharper than others. Some cameras are going to have different color science, and it's all about what you prefer. And it's going to be so difficult because you're going to have so many people torn right down the middle as to what they prefer versus what they don't prefer. And it's really hard. Some people like the sharpness of the Sony, the isolation, the bokeh of the Sony. Some people like the what they would call natural look of the LG, where sometimes colors can be a bit more flat than they should be. Now, to be fair, again, I did juice up the colors on the LG way beyond what any purist would tell you to do, but it is possible to get a Sony look on an LG, and that's the point of this video. When you actually try, you can make your LG look pretty exceptional, quite exquisite, and I think that's the message here. Again, revisiting things, trying with this TV harder than I think I've ever tried with any other TV in history, I've been able to get results that just, they really are quite similar to Sony and, you know, in some ways better depending on the scene, like in this one, where you have a lot better representation of cyan. Now, in this scene, not so great because it's looking a little sour. When there's, again, an overabundance of red or that shade of orange, it's going to go to Sony. And it's weird because it's so tit for tat that it becomes extremely difficult to tell which one of these TVs are ultimately going to be the best choice. But again, it's really a preferential thing. I like the look of the Sony on this one now. She's just a little too orange looking, a little too unnatural on the LG there. LG really pushes green, I noticed. That's like their color. and they push it across the entire color spectrum in the white balance. So what this means is, a lot of colors are going to favor a more greenish hue by nature than not. Now, in water scenes like this, looks great, but in fire scenes like this, it doesn't look so great. So it's really, again, it's a tomato kind of thing. You are really going to have to pick your poison carefully. It can help with skin tones, but not always. When you look at normal examples like this, like just of regularly shot footage, homemade type footage, it's going to look, again, very, very similar. And they do go back and forth relatively well, I would say. Again, after using HDR effect mode, dialing in my settings. If you're an LG C10 owner and you haven't joined to check out my settings, again, now's a great time to try them out. I'm telling you, you've got nothing to lose. For $5, you can get a picture that literally is holding up right next to a Sony A8G. And remember, months ago, I absolutely railed this TV because it just wasn't doing that. I've even got reds looking a lot better and a lot closer to the Sony than what I was able to do back when I didn't use BT 2020. And again, you've got people like Vincent on HDTV Test telling you not to use BT 2020. It's just terrible. Don't do it. I'm telling you, I'm living proof. I'm rocking the results. I'm loving what I'm seeing. And I'm telling you, when you compare these two TVs side by side and you really use the Sony as a reference monitor to get LG where it needs to be, there can be no doubt that these two TVs are good at what they do. Now, if I had to pick a winner, honestly, I can't. I really would have to say that after calibration, it's a tie because Sony is sharper and in some cases will have much better color, much better motion, but then on LG, it could be the total reverse where they can have much better hues and shades, but then be a little flatter in some areas like here on this scene. You're not going to see that on the camera, but in real life, it's definitely a lot more flat by comparison to the Sony. It lacks a lot more dimensionality. Now it lacks a lot more color depth. So it just really is going to go based off of tomato. So again, don't use this footage as a 100% representation. Also, it's merely a guide as to what I see on my end, but it's really like this. I feel like they honestly both tie because they both do different things, and no matter what, it's just going to depend on personal preference. So the $1 million question here is, do I still recommend the B10 over the C10? The short answer is going to be yes. I feel like it's very similar. The B10 does better for color volume. That's not changing. And motion is a little bit better depending on what you're watching. Ultimately speaking, though, I do think that these two TVs are very well spec'd to one another. I think if you're talking about the Sony A8G and you're talking about the LG C10, I mean, either way, it'll be all right if you, again, dial it in. Though, to be very fair, the LG took endless hours of adjusting, tweaking, grabbing the remote, adjusting again, running back and forth. It was not an easy ordeal, and it's not something I'm going to pass off as an easy ordeal. And that's why I say if you're somebody that wants an easier way to set up your TV, then Sony. If you're somebody that wants to put a lot more work into it at the end of the day, for a similar result, then maybe the LG. But overall, I've got to say, either way, I'm feeling a lot better about my LG C10 after doing all of this work. But again, it's just that extra punch from that Sony, that warmth, that detail. Like, I really love the look of the Sony. I do. And if I had to pick a winner personally for me and what I've seen, I do prefer Sony, but I do also feel as though they are very, very tied. If you want to check out the material used in this video, look up the playlist section on this channel, and the testing material playlist is what I use. I'll be putting more content in the testing material playlist so that you guys can test your own TVs, and I'll be finding new ways to try to help you guys, again, assess picture quality as time goes on. But that being said, I really want to thank you guys so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty, and until the next video, I'll see you guys later.